appreciate you joining us this afternoon. It is 2 o'clock and do have a full presentation for you. So in the interest of time, I would like to go ahead and get started. If people are trying to join us after this, someone will let them in the lobby, because once I start sharing my screen, if I click, I would also like to let you know that this meeting is being recorded. A couple of different people have asked to have it recorded so that they can hear it because they're not able to attend today. So we'll be doing that. All right, well, let me introduce myself to you quickly. My name is Adrienne Takor. I have talked with or met with most of you at some point. If not, I'm glad to be speaking with you now and look forward to working together over the next months to get this started. I am the special project manager for this MDPS transition for child support enforcement contracting officials' offices. All right, before I get officially started, I would like to ask all of you to please mute your lines. And that way, if there's any background noise on your end, it does not interfere with the presentation, so that everybody can hear as clearly as possible. All right. As we go through today, what we're going to do is review the packet that you all should have received via email for the payroll timekeeping transition for the project. As we go through this, you will no doubt have questions. There are a couple of different ways that you can ask those questions. Number one, you can type it into the chat box in this meeting if you know how to do that. If you don't, that's okay. You may always email me directly. Also, there is a survey link like we have done in the past on this project to enter questions. At the end of the meeting, I will put all of this information for how to ask questions into the calendar invite. I'll update it so that you'll have that there at your disposal. All right, so let's get started. As I go through this, I really am going to be reviewing the packet, giving you more information and more explanation as we go through it. So I'll share my screen to show it to you, but you may refer to your own copy if you have it there with you, or pull it up on another screen, however you would like to do that. But we will have, I will have the information up on the screen for you. Okay. So this is the beginning of the packet, starting with the letter from Commissioner Vino and Director Pattison. And it explains that the payroll timekeeping standardization is going to be effective on July 1st, 2021. So that's the beginning of the fiscal year 22. And, you know, we're actually quite happy to announce that after several months of talking with you, meeting with different groups within the state, our DGA office, our IT cases support personnel, with central office, with other attorney groups and agencies within state government, that we have finally come to a solution for how to standardize the payroll. So I would like to first thank you all definitely for your patience and participation in this process. Having your feedback along the way has made it easier to sort of anticipate and address any issues that might come up. And of course, we know that this is change for everyone, and so there will be questions along the way, so don't be shy about asking them. As you all know, I bet if you have the question, someone else has the same question too. All right. Before we get too far into this, let me remind you that these payroll changes apply to everyone in the sense that they're required. The only exemption is if your county is one that is paid its payroll by your fiscal court system. We do have a running list of those started that I will put into the calendar invite as an attachment for your review after this meeting. If you're on that list and you should not be, or you're not on the list and you should be, please just contact me so that we can get that list correct. But that's the list of the counties that I believe from our review that our fiscal court pay. Now, fiscal court counties, if you're listening, just so that you know, there will be some changes in how the information looks in the MDPS system, which is what MIPS will be afterwards, but you will still use that interface to do your payroll. All right. As you know, this is phase one of the MDPS transition process. There are other elements to this, but we're going to be focusing on payroll right now. So if you look at the second page of the letter, my contact information is here for you. And there are some important dates. Immediately following this meeting, if you haven't already started, there are quite a few actions that you want to be thinking about and taking at this time. First is to review the packet, get any of your questions answered, start sharing this information with any affected staff in your offices, get any more questions answered. Attend the payroll vendor demonstrations that have been scheduled for later this week. You will have already received 2 invitations, one for March 17th at 2 Eastern, 1 Central, and one for the 23rd at 2 Eastern, 1 Central. There will be a third invitation coming to you shortly for a third vendor that is going to take advantage of the demonstration opportunity, and that will be, just so you can look at your calendars, that will be March 22nd at 3 p.m. Eastern, 2 p.m. Central, and I'll get that invite out to you as soon as we have our dial-in information confirmed, so be looking for that. Keep in mind, as we go through all of this, you may choose any payroll vendor service that you would like, as long as the minimum requirements that are in the packet and that we'll review are met. But these 3 vendors who are going to be doing demonstrations have been very responsive to me as I have researched and worked on this, and they have agreed and they're willing to work within our minimum standards and with me to help facilitate the transitions in our offices. So that's why those 3 vendors have demonstrations. All right, so now we're going to review this packet, adding some explanations. I have received some questions already, and I'm going to try to incorporate those answers as we go through the packet. And then, of course, be sure to note any questions or concerns that you have so that you can communicate those to me after this. All right, so the document you have for the fiscal year 2022 payroll calendar has multiple elements to it. And this page just explains to you how to use it. I'm going to use it to explain it to you so you'll see how it works as we go through. But just keep in mind, we do understand that this is a significant change for most everyone on this call and working in our child support enforcement offices across the state. This project, the standardization of payroll, is not designed to replace your accountants, but can depend or affect the way that you engage your accountants. So as you go through and start making these decisions, you'll likely need to be thinking about that as well. How these standards and requirements and schedules were determined is based on our research with you all, as well as using U.S. Department of Labor and Human Resources industry standards. So this schedule has fidelity with all of that guidance and standards. Why are we doing this? Just to review, this will alleviate some issues or difficulties that have historically occurred when keeping payroll in a non-automated way or by hand or in different ways for different people, where you have to go back after the person's been paid and fix errors, or you're not sure exactly what happens before you have to do payroll. This automated process will increase the efficiencies associated with timekeeping and time tracking, as well as calculating and reporting. and it will also help improve the accuracy. So there'll be less time spent fixing errors. There'll be better fidelity during audits, and make that process easier for everyone overall. As you can see here at the bottom of this page is the link with my contact information again, and this is a link where you can also submit questions if you have them. All right, so this page is just a calendar of fiscal year 2022 going from July 21 to June 22, and it shows what the semi-monthly pay periods are going to be once we start the system. How you read it is that each of the color shaded area is one pay period, and the green colored font date is a payday. And you'll see that the paydays fall the closest to the 15th and the 30th of each month. This next page is a list version of the exact same thing. It is in list version because I don't know about you guys, but sometimes I like to see things in picture form. Sometimes I like to see it listed and written out. So this just helps reiterate it in a certain way. If you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see how the pay periods run. Pay periods will always start on Mondays and always go through Sundays. It is industry standard that you have a 7-day pay period, even if you only work a 5-day week. And this just helps with fidelity in the event that anyone does work extra, and then matching up with the calendar. You will receive 24 paychecks per fiscal year. And so that equates to 2 times per month at a minimum. Pay dates are semi-monthly, so that means that they're on the 15th and the 30th of the month. But of course, the 15th and the 30th can sometimes fall on a holiday or a weekend, and so it is either pushed forward or back to the closest business day to one of those 2 dates. You'll see as you look on this one, and you'll also see on the shaded area, some pay periods do include 3 weeks. And that is just because we have a 52-week calendar, and when you divide that by 24, there's some extra weeks involved. This is very similar to if you are currently a person who is paid every 2 weeks. Some of your paychecks will have 3 weeks worth of time on them, and so they look bigger than others, whereas normally they're just 2 weeks. So this is the same idea, except what it does is it creates different pay periods. So let me re-say that. I didn't say that very well. If you're currently being paid biweekly, sometimes you'll receive 3 paychecks in a month, each of them having 2 weeks on it, but within the calendar month, you receive your paycheck 3 times. You're still getting the same amount of money over the time for what you've worked, but because 52 isn't divisible evenly, you have some extra time. So that's what's happening here. So these bolded pay periods include 3 weeks instead of just the 2 that the rest of them include. So the first column is the beginning of the pay period, the second column is the end of the pay period, and the third column is the date that you will receive pay for those dates. You will notice that for this transition project, the first paycheck that you will receive that is based on this schedule will be on July 30th of 2021, and that is so that we can give you time from the beginning of the fiscal year on July 1st to make that transition within your office. And so that's noted here. So for any pay periods or time worked prior to July 11th, and for any pay dates prior to July 30th, you want to look at the transition calendar that we are proposing, as well as whatever's decided in your office. Okay. And so if we'll scroll down to this next page, what you have are some payroll transition examples. And before I move on to these, let me just note that there are some attorneys, whether they're the county attorney or assistant county attorney or other attorneys across the state who are typically only paid monthly. You can continue to pay employees monthly, but you have to pay for that whole month in the following month. So you have to pay for 1 month at a time, and you'll need to choose whether you're going to do that on the first pay period or the second pay period of the month. It must be in arrears. So I would recommend the second pay period of the month and keep that consistent throughout the year. And if you have more questions about that, of course, please just contact me so that we can work through those. All right, payroll and transition. So how you use this payroll transition example guide is you take a look at this schedule and see which type of pay frequency most closely matches the way you are currently paid. Okay, and so the pay frequencies are listed here. The first is weekly in arrears, weekly simultaneous, biweekly offset simultaneous, biweekly simultaneous, biweekly in arrears, and semi-monthly simultaneous. What in the world do all those terms mean? So basically, I was trying to explain after we talked with you guys across the state and you answered a survey and you told me how often you pay your staff in our pilot group. And so I use that information because there are some patterns that are consistent across different offices. So arrears, when you look here at the bottom, there's a glossary. When it indicates arrears, it's talking about you being paid at least 1 week after the last day worked in your pay period. So arrears is when there's a gap of about a week between the last day you worked and when you get paid for that day. Simultaneous is when you're paid on or before the last day of the pay period. So let's say you work Monday through Friday, but you get paid on Thursday for the hours, and that paycheck includes hours that you are anticipated to work on Friday, or you get paid on Friday for that Monday through Friday. So that's what simultaneous indicates. Offset. The reason offset is in here is because we do have some offices that are paid biweekly, which is the most similar to a semi-monthly schedule. And depending on how that year is broken out, your biweekly pay period schedule might currently be very close to you being paid on the 15th and the 30th of every month. And it may be the opposite where you get paid on the 1st and the 16th. And so that's what offset means, when it either it's close to the 15th or the 30th, or it's some other week in the month, but still biweekly. So that's what these mean. I'm going to scroll back up to the top. When you look across here at the columns, you see that the first one is the date that you're paid. So that is the date that you would receive your paycheck. The second is the pay period. So it is the pay dates in the pay period. And these dates correspond to the dates on this list as well as the dates on the calendar. This column, the fourth column, talks about the days in your pay period. And so that tells you for how many days you are going to be paid on this payday. And then because this is a transition from what you were already doing to help you get to what we are going to be doing going forward, I've put on here, as you transition, how many days are going to occur between your paychecks. And that is because we absolutely understand that this is a transition for people. And I've tried to come up with a system that does it as gradually, but as efficiently as possible. And to tell you this information so that already right now, more than 60 days ahead of time, almost 4 months ahead of time, you can start planning ahead and having conversations with your creditors, with your bank, with your spouse, with your family, to handle the obligations you have, to let them know what the transitions are and any adjustments you might need to make as we move to the transition. Unfortunately, there's no real way to do this without somebody at some point going through some sort of transition. And we do have a lot of people involved here. So I want you to know that we are cognizant of that, and we've done everything that we think we can to help make it smoother. So please take advantage of this time to talk with yourself, to talk with your staff about what the transition is going to entail, when it's going to occur, and what that might mean for them. As you communicate with your offices, if you need more help, please reach out to me so that I can provide that for you. And we also thought that doing these transition calendars would make it easier than just saying, as a real matter of course, doing a direct sudden change that, from on one day you're this way and on the next day you're that way. That was going to create lots of upheaval, and we want to minimize the upheaval as best we can. All right, so also when you look at this, you'll see some green highlighted rows. You'll see that those pay dates are July 30th and August 16th. So those are the first two paychecks in the standardized payroll system. So what you see is how you get from where you are to what the first two pay periods look like in this transition example. The colors here for each of the pay frequency categories correspond with an example calendar. So starting on the next page, you'll see the example calendar, and at the top, each of the calendar pages is labeled with the same color to help you kind of make that leap. I know it's back and forth. And so, you know, it might be, if you can, get it on multiple screens or print it out so you can spread it out to take a look. Okay, so let's go through some of these. The first one is the weekly in arrears. So this is an office or a person who gets paid every week, and they get paid in arrears. So arrears, again, means there's a gap between the last day they worked and when the first day is they're paid. So when you look across here, let's say starting in July, they get paid on the first Friday in July, which is the 2nd. And that would be for the previous week worked, right? So there's a gap between the last day they worked, June 27th, and then the date they're paid, July 2nd. They're being paid for 7 whole calendar days, even if they only worked 5 calendar days or 4 calendar days or 3, just depending on whatever their schedule is. But the pay period covers 7 calendar days. So we're calling that paycheck 0. So this is their normal pay schedule. The following week, the Friday is July 9th, and they would get their 7-day pay period for June 28th through July 4th. But you see here that there's going to be 8 days between there. So there's a little bit longer between the paychecks, and that's just to stretch that out a little bit to help make that transition. The next time you would receive a paycheck would be on July 20th for the days worked between July 5th and July 11th. And you see that you look at these dates, and there are no days worked skipped. So you're still getting paid for all of your days. We're just stretching out the pay period from 1 week to 2 weeks gradually so that it's not such a shock, a sudden shock to have your pay periods change. And so this third check, it'll be 10 days from when you got the last check on July 9th to when you get the next check on July 20th, but it'll be for those 7 days. And so what that does is it keeps you in arrears, but it adjusts your time so that by July 30th paycheck, you will be being paid for the time you work from July 12th to July 25th. And so you'll see that July 12th through July 25th corresponds with the first pay period here, July 12th through July 25th, to be paid on July 30th, right? And then you'll see the days in that period are 14, and that paycheck is going to come 10 days after your previous check, but it will have all 14 days worked on it. The next one will be the second pay period in the new system on August 16th, being paid for days July 26th through August 8th. Again, another 14-day pay period, but it'll be 17 days after your next one, and so on. If you're more of a visual person and you want to see it on a calendar, you would take weekly in arrears, scroll down, take a look at the yellow weekly in arrears, and you see the current situation would be if you were to be paid on July 23rd and you're paid for 1 week and you're paid in arrears. This is the week you work. This is the gap between when you last work and when you're actually paid, right? So this is your week and you're paid in arrears. Then you'll do the same thing for the next week. And then you'll see the first time that you have a paycheck for the July 12th through 25th pay period under the new standardized system. You see you're working July 12th. So any of the days that you work between July 12th through July 25th, and that is a full 14 days, there's a gap so that you're paid in arrears to be paid on the 30th. The reason for paying in arrears is such that there are less errors and less necessity to have to go back in time and correct if something changed in what's an anticipated occurrence on your paycheck. So for example, you thought you were going to take a vacation day on a Wednesday, but it turns out you were actually sick, and so you called in sick, or it turns out you didn't need the vacation day and you came to work anyway. Well, if you'd already submitted that and then you're paid for it, that means on the next paycheck, they have to go back and recredit your sick time or your vacation time and convert that to paid to working hours. And so paying someone in arrears always allows you that benefit of making sure that what actually happened is what they're actually being paid for. It also allows more time for there to be review by supervisors, and then a second level of approval before the check is written. So that helps with audit fidelity as well. So we'll go over, next we'll go over biweekly simultaneous, or actually, I'm sorry, weekly simultaneous. So you'll see here, July 2nd for time work, June 28th through July 4th, 7 days, that's normal. And then on the 16th, you would be paid for the 5th through the 11th for a 14-day pay period, or a 7-day pay period with 14 days between your checks. So here you're noticing that you're getting paid for these seven days, but you'll have to wait 2 weeks for that paycheck. So as you look at the calendar, you're thinking about, how do I change and adjust what I need to in order to account for this longer period? So you're not really skipping a paycheck. It's just that there's a delay between when you work and when you're paid. But you are still paid for all the hours worked in that time. And then here is the first pay period under the new system, July 30th. For July 12th through the 25th, it's a 14-day pay period, and it's only 14 days after. So that helps you make that transition from being paid every week to being paid every 14 days. And so if you'd like to see that on the calendar again, this is blue. So you come down, look for the page with the blue at the top, weekly simultaneous. And then you see this is what you're accustomed to. You're accustomed to working and being paid. So here, this is my example. What if you asked for a vacation day here and you didn't end up taking that vacation day? More than likely, you've had to submit your time so that the accountant has time to look at it and the check has time to be written and signed to be paid here. So there's no time to change it between when you didn't do what you thought you were going to do and when you're paid. And so then on the next time, it has to be corrected. So then here's your second week of transition. This will be your pay period with a gap so that you're paid in arrears. And then here's the first pay period in the new schedule, again with the gap for arrears. What happens in this gap for being paid in arrears is that on the first weekday there, you will go into a system, and we'll talk about how the vendors work in just a minute. You'll go into the system, you'll say, yep, this is accurate for what I worked. I don't have any changes. Then that goes to your supervisor. Your supervisor goes, yep, I agree. That's what he or she worked, and I don't have any changes. And then it gets sent to the payroll provider to do the processing and to make a report. And then whoever approves that in your office goes, yep, I agree with this report. It matches with what I sent you on Tuesday. And then on Thursday, the bank processing can occur. Another benefit of this system is that you will be paid through direct deposit. So there's a good paper trail as well. Well, it's not really a paper trail, it's an electronic trail. And it allows for faster, more accurate deposits. And then, you know, you can work with, if you need the money to be sent someplace else, and so on and so forth. Same thing for biweekly offset. I'm not going to read all of this to you, but just so you can see here with the biweekly offset, there are, if you're on a biweekly schedule, you're used to being paid for 14 days at a time. But in order to make this transition, you see that there's one pay period where you're going to have a few more days before you're paid just to get you transitioned, and then it'll be the same after that. Same thing, biweekly simultaneous, meaning that you're already being paid as close to the 15th and the 30th already, but here there'll have to be a transition to get you flipped onto the schedule, so you're being paid close to the 30th and the 16th of each month. If you're on biweekly in arrears, the same situation here. These two biweekly, they will have the least amount of adjustment because they're already accustomed to being paid every 2 weeks. And then this one is semi-monthly. So if you're already on a 1st and the 15th or a 15th and a 30th type situation, you'll see that you'll actually be paid about the same ways, but the amount of days that you're paid for on the pay period shifts. Okay, so all of these correspond, these colors and headers correspond to calendars if you would like to look and see what that looks like on the calendar. So you have all of these pages in your packet. I'm going to scroll past these for now and transition us on through to the next page, which is just a few pages after all the calendars, and it's labeled Fiscal Year 22 Payroll Cash Flow Markup. The reason we have this page in there is because we wanted to be able to show you how this payroll adjustment is funded based on the reimbursement system that we already use. Please keep in mind that we are still staying in a reimbursement model for now. So that means that you will submit your reimbursements for the prior month's activities and be reimbursed as you are now. You will be paying your employees. You can do that through your vendor, and we'll talk about how that works in a few minutes. The vendors will do all the calculations and can calculate and remit whatever you need them to based on the choices you make when you engage with that vendor. So if you look at this calendar, the way you use it, so basically it's an extension of the previous pay period calendar with a little bit more information on it. So you have the beginning of the pay period, the end of the pay period, and the date that the employee is paid. And so then where does that money come from? So you take a look at this. So that pay date that you're paying on July 30th, offices will receive their annual installment like they typically do in about the middle of July. And so that's what is going to fund that first paycheck. At the end of July, you're going to also receive and file your reimbursements just like you normally do. So when you're reimbursed, you're going to use the previous month's reimbursement to pay for the pay period. So what you pay on July 26th and August 9th is going to be submitted on your August reimbursement that you receive in September. And so that September reimbursement funds the late August and September, the first half of the September payroll. You submit that reimbursement in October, and what you receive from October for the previous month. So you see these kind of dog walk and stair step backwards to fund each of the months. And so this shading here indicates, the blue indicates the pay periods that are paid, and then the alternate in the tan. So you'll see all the blues go together and all the tans go together, and those are alternate month reimbursements that correspond with the pay periods. Also know that we have been working as we enter phase 1 to work with the release of funds and that schedule on the state level so that there are no delays in reimbursing you for your payroll expenses. You will see a policy once this is implemented that asks for you to make sure that you submit your payroll by a specific date in order to facilitate that efficient process. We are working with DGA so that no funds for payroll are held up. One of the ways we're addressing that is that once your payroll report is submitted, and that'll be done automatically through your vendor. We'll discuss that shortly. Once that is submitted, the system, MDPS, will automatically create the payroll portion of your invoice. And it will correspond, be a direct payroll uplink from the information you have already approved and used to pay the employees within the payroll vendor system. So that will save you a lot of time creating your invoices. It will improve the accuracy because that whole thing from clocking in to reporting and requesting reimbursement, that entire process will be automated. And so once you approve it one time, it's done all the way through reimbursement. All right. So how are we going to put this together? So we've talked about what the changes are. We've talked about when the changes are going to occur. Now let's talk about how they're going to be made. The way we're going to do that is through, see if I can get the whole thing on the screen for you. The way we're going to do that is work with online payroll vendors. And we have worked with DGA, we've worked with the cases programmers, the IT programmers, so that MIP will be changed to accommodate what we're asking for here. And if there's any fiscal court counties on here, even if you are still needing to use the system to enter your employees like you currently are, it may ask for a little bit more and a little bit different information so that these things correspond, but you'll still use the same process. For our non-fiscal court payroll counties, which is the most of you, your initial point of contact for all of your employees, all of the tracking, all of the calculating and remittances will be through the payroll vendor that you choose. And so everything will be handled there. You'll enter the information one time, and that one time it will carry through. So when a person is onboarded as a new employee, they'll go into the payroll vendor system. People who are already working, when we transfer over to the payroll vending services, we'll put them in the payroll vendor, and that's where they'll stay. And that report will talk to MDPS, which is now MIP, automatically so that the information stays the same as we go through. And so that's the reason we need, no matter what payroll vendor you choose to use, and you may certainly choose your own, this minimum information, this minimum requirement has to be met so that we have standardization. And the reason for the standardization, again, is so that we can be more efficient, you have more time for service delivery, and we have more accurate records of what's actually happening. So they'll need to provide an uploadable report. So whomever you choose will need to at some point connect with me so that I can connect them with our IT folks to make sure that that communication channel for automation does exist and they're able to do that. That automated report must include, and this is pretty standard stuff, so any payroll vendor of merit should be able to do this for you. Employee last name, employee number, job title, their current status, exempt or non-exempt, meaning they're hourly or salaried, whether they work full-time or part-time, and such. I won't need to read all this to you, okay? When you come down here, retirement system and elected benefits, another perk of using a payroll vending service is that once you program it in, you say, this is our the retirement system for this person. This person is in CERS, and this is how much we have to pay. This is how much they're paying. The system calculates all of that for you, and then it sets it up in the report that this is how much was paid, this is when it's due, this is when it was paid, if you choose to use your payroll vendor also as a remittance service. Same thing with elected benefits. You program in what the options are, what the costs are, what the pre-tax, the post-tax, the employer portion, the employee portion. You put all that into the system and it does it for you. So hopefully that comes as an added benefit for those of you whose job it is to work on this minutia. So you just have to make sure the information is put in to the system appropriately to begin with, and then you just check it when the report is done to make sure it looks the way you expect it to. The same goes for taxes. But again, you're still going to be responsible for either remitting those yourself in your office or working with your payroll vendor to make those remittances. And then you use your automated payroll invoice to build on your full reimbursement invoice for the month, submit that to get your reimbursement. The great thing about these payroll vendors is that they also do timekeeping and time tracking. And so the vendors that that we'll be reviewing here in just a minute, they have agreed and assured that they can do the type of timekeeping electronically that is required on the documents we already have on the CS21 and CS22. So that means for hourly employees, you'll be able to clock in and say, I clocked in at at 9 o'clock for my child support enforcement work. I clocked out at 11:30 for lunch. I clocked back in at 12 after lunch, and I worked until 2:30, right? And then it's going to calculate all of that. For attorneys where you need to track the different work that you do on different cases, you'll be able to use your payroll vendor as a time tracking service. And so there will be codes and fields for you to say, I worked for 6 minutes on this case, and this is the case name or case number, and it was on Monday from 2:40 to 2:46 p.m. or from 2:40 to 3:40 p.m. and it was administrative work or it was a court appearance. You will be able to do all of that tracking within the system electronically. And so then when the invoice is created, it will automatically create the report that we will accept through MDPS to support your payroll request for reimbursement. You will still have to provide other documentation as usual, but that reporting process will be automatically done. And so hopefully that too will create greater efficiencies and improve accuracy for you. All right, I know it's a lot of information, but just hang with me for a little bit longer, because next we're going to review the payroll vendors. I just want to reiterate again, you may choose any vendor you'd like, not just the ones who are listed here. If you feel like doing your own research, if you already use a payroll vendor you'd like to stay with, as long as they can meet these requirements, you're welcome to do that. But the ones that are on the list that I have provided are those who responded and confirmed with us that they are able to and prepared to do the work and meet the minimum requirements. All right, let's go to that now. I need to shrink this back again. All right. So the way I conducted this research was I did a search for payroll timekeeping vendors. Of course, the Google search, if you do it yourself, you see it responds with a lot of different options. Everybody who had a web page, I clicked contact us, and I introduced myself, filled in my contact information, and said, this is what we're looking to do. And when they responded, I collected their information. Some responded with lots of information and lots of conversation and spoke to me and wanted to know very in depth what we could do, what we needed to do, how many counties we had. And some just said, yes, we can do it. And some said, yeah, we're happy to talk with you. And so that's what you're seeing here in the different amounts of information. It's just, this is basically what I received and I'm reporting it to you. So Paychex the vendor, they are going to do a demonstration for us. And the benefits of the demonstrations are that you'll be able to see in real time and what it will actually look like to do the timekeeping, to do the time tracking, to review and approve payroll and submit it, and what the report that they create that will then be data transferred to MDPS, what that looks like. So their demonstration is on March 17th at 2 p.m. 1 Central. You should have already received a calendar invite for that, but if you didn't, let me know so I can send it back out to you. Here's some pricing. You'll notice that there's a bit of pricing difference for each of these. And then each one of these businesses kind of has their sweet spot on who they like to serve, and our county attorney offices are different across the state. Some are very large, some are small, and everything in between. And so you might want to think about that as well. Some other things you might want to think about as you're looking at this chart, as well as doing your own research before you make your decision, is the reasons that were just general industry reasons to automate payroll. You want somebody who can handle all aspects of your payroll, collecting your wages, your hours, your calculating and tracking leave, calculating taxes, remitting taxes, benefits and payments. And then do they give you the choice to calculate and remit the way you want to do it? Can they make direct deposits? What other supports do they have for you to support your human resources needs, your onboarding, your advertising positions, etc. You want to make sure they can do the timekeeping that we require for both the CS21 and the CS22. If you have a different time tracking vendor and you want to keep them, you want to make sure they can talk to each other so that they can integrate so that your report and invoice can contain the information it's supposed to contain. Of course, see if they do more for the same price than what we're asking them to do, then you get that benefit. And then think about your employees too, which I know you already do, but how easy is it for your staff to access clocking in and clocking out, to access their timesheet, to access their pay stubs and W-2s? Make sure that you look and ask for those things too. You also want to look for a vendor who is not only responsive, but responsive quickly and responds in a way that you can understand and actually helpful to you. Does their software also integrate with your accounting software? If you use an accountant, you want to pull them in, accounting firm, pull those in. Let's say you do all of your accounting on QuickBooks. Do they jive with QuickBooks and talk to it so that everything's all in one place for you? Because you don't want to create more work by getting a vendor. And then finally, again, do they support more than just payroll? So you'll see from what I was able to figure out from each of these, who's full service, who isn't. The second one is ADP. They will be doing their demonstration on March 23rd. Theirs is also at 2 p.m. Eastern, 1 Central. And there are other vendors out there like Paycor, Intuit, QuickBooks. Some have free services, some have paid services, and a combination thereof. I will let you know that some of these companies that say they do it for free, they don't do what we need them to do for free. So don't get trapped by that. Onto the second page, there is one more vendor that I have been able to contact with, and they're not on this list because we started to finalize things after this was sent out to you. But in the next couple of days, I will send out the same information for this vendor, and they're called Payroll Partners, and they're located in Northern Kentucky. They will forward their proposal and information and prices to me here shortly, and I will get that out to you the same day that I receive it from them. They are also going to do a demonstration for us on March 22nd at 3 Central. Excuse me, that's wrong. Let me start over. They are also going to do a demonstration for us on March 22nd at 3 Eastern, 2 Central. So you may want to go ahead and mark your calendars for that. So that's Payroll Partners. I will send out the information from them as soon as it's finalized and I have it. I would really highly, we all recommend that you join these demos so that you can see how it looks in real time. You can formulate some better questions. But then know once you get through the demonstrations that your vendor selection is due to us by April 15th at 5 p.m., 4 p.m., 5 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Central. I'll make sure to send that link again when I update the calendar invite, but it's also in the letter. It's on the second page of the letter at the beginning of the packet. We need this by April 15th so that we can start the communication between the IT programmers here in the cases office and the vendors themselves. So we want to start that communication as soon as possible so that things are ready to go by July 1. All right, the remaining pages of this presentation are just the written proposals that I received from the two vendors that submitted them to me. One is Paychex, and theirs is quite a few pages, and the other one at the very end is ADP's. And that's what they submitted to us so that you can see it. So, you know, we want to be completely transparent about this. You will have a third one from Payroll Partners coming this week under separate cover. And so you can see that I asked them for the same information and they provided it to us. So you can review those. No matter which vendor you choose to research, you can and should make sure that they can meet our minimum requirements. If you have questions, need help navigating that process, if you don't want to choose one of these, we've already done the research on these, but if you want to choose something different, I'm happy to meet and discuss, talk by phone with any vendor you need to connect with. Whew, all right. It's a lot of information. You'll have this recording so that you can go back. You can listen to it again. You can read over the packet again while you're listening to it. Talk about it with other people in your office. Contact me directly if you need me to go through anything or to ask general questions. We know, and I'm sure you know, that this is involving quite a bit of change for most of you. But just keep in mind that the benefits of this transition are that we are automating the service so that it'll be more accurate, more efficient, and that we can provide you with more support than what you currently receive throughout the system. And that's going to benefit all of us and make it better. Your to-do list. Review the packet and the information. Ask questions, get those questions answered. Share the information with your staff. Come back to me to get their questions answered if they're different than the ones you've already asked. Please be sure to attend the demonstrations on March 17th, March 22nd, and March 23rd. And then spend the next couple of weeks after that making your vendor choices and communicating those to us via the survey link by April 15th. Be sure to check the calendar invite for this meeting after the meeting for any additional links. For answers to questions. And then watch your email for the additional payroll vendor, window. Okay, window, not window. I'm looking at windows on my computer and I said windows for the additional information. So all of that will be there for you. Send any questions to me. We're getting done just a little bit early. I'm glad we didn't run over. So this will conclude our meeting. I appreciate your time, your effort, and your cooperation and collaboration as we've gone through this. Have a good rest of the Monday and a good week, and we'll talk to you soon. This will conclude the call.